So hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome, and this is gonna be a good show. Um, just waiting for another couple people to come in. Also, I realized I don't know why, but my own camera has a little bit of latency on this side, so I'm gonna kind of mess around with that while people are streaming on in.
Yeah, you
Um,
look a bit blocky to me.
yeah, well, you're actually seeing a different camera than everyone else is.
Oh, okay.
Um, Let me see if that changes it at all. It's- But anyway, how have you been lately, though?
Well, pretty good. Just working on projects, actually getting my roof redone finally.
Hmm.
So, you know, I'm currently off grid.
Wow. Like completely off grid?
I threw the breaker, so I'm not connected to the power grid. So
Hmm.
I'm solar plus battery right now.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see if my whole um buggy nonsense really messed things up here, huh? Hold on a second. I don't know why my webcam's bugging out so much. So I'm actually gonna have to sort of switch modes. So one moment. I'm going to. I have the wrong one. Okay. I am going to just switch the camera thing on this thing. There we go. It's with both of us. So for those who don't care, I guess, um, usually I take the video stream in on one webcam from Jitsi or some Jitsi instance or whatever, like Brave Talk. And then I have another webcam that does on that feed. So I'm going from like the visual feed there, and then everything I can hear, and then this is the internal, and the other is the internal. My webcam's bugging out so bad, so now I'm just in the same feed as you're coming from. So it's gonna look
Mm.
like this, unfortunately, which it's fine. You know, it's just not. It doesn't have the nice nameplates and everything like that. But yeah, this webcam is bugging out hard. Haven't had this happen in a while. Interesting. Anyway, Zero Cool. Hi everybody. Hi Zero Cool. I think you're cooler than that, to be honest. If I were to be, yeah, kind of lagging. Audio is fine though. Thank you. All right, so we are 6 or so minutes in. Might as well roll the actual intro. Well, hold on. Before I roll the actual intro, I need to set something up real quick. But it's my shilling moment. Random question. Never mind. I actually forgot the question I was going to ask, but you could probably go to other things. But yeah, I'm all over the place today. All right. Well, let me just roll the intro and actually get into the show. All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone. Happy Friday officially. Welcome to the Dash Podcast. This is episode 213. And it used to be a weekly show way back in the Dash Force days. And then after that, I took it to this channel. And that was about 4 years ago. Actually, I think the 28th or the 29th is going to be the 4 year anniversary of the first episode of this on my own channel as opposed to the old one. So I've been doing this show for a very long time. And it's monthly now. Basically, it was I started doing it every other week, and then I just realized I just started having a lot of the same people on. It's very hard to do a weekly podcast on just one project anyway, and I feel like you have a much bigger event for this sort of thing. But and I'm joined by the one and only AgeOfDoge. I've had you
Hello.
I've had you on under your slave name before. But since a lot of the stuff is under that pseudonym, I figure might as well just throw the pseudonym out there, make that work out. How are you doing, dude?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I've done I had a biz dev call at 1, and then I had a podcast at 2, and then I did a podcast at 3, and now I have a podcast at 4, and then I have a hard out in a little over an hour, just about an hour, to go to an evening obligation. So yeah, it's
busy.
quite the busy day. I've been working very hard, and as some might have, well, maybe I'll save that for the actual show part of things to start out with a little update. But let me just switch to the shill o'clock, the CoinATMRadar, because they decided to sponsor the podcast, and I'm very, very grateful to them for that. So let me pull up the actual script thingy. But so anyway, this podcast is sponsored by CoinATMRadar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With CoinATMRadar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptocurrencies for cash, which is kind of what I've mostly used them for, because like when I travel and I don't have euros or something, put some Dash into the machine, get some fake money out, right? And so on their website, you search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, which is, again, the coin selection and that are very big for me. And also you can search by geo area, etc. You can also check and compare actual current fees from different ATMs. If you want to find out more, go to coinatmradar.com, which is CoinATMRadar.com. So now that's out of the way. When I scheduled this podcast, I didn't really have too much of a very specific agenda, right? I seen you posting a lot of stuff on mostly X, right? But like some video content, especially analyzing basically economic effects on, say, price and market cap, and especially about Dash, but on other stuff as well, from usage as a currency. And we're kind of at this interesting spot where the hype trains of crypto are all over the place. It's now pretty obvious that like meme coins, not just Doge, but other meme coins as well, can do quite well and have staggering market caps for some reason. And then utility coins can be quite undervalued, in fact. There's this weird disparity, and for a while, like Dash is focused, Dash in particular, but a lot of different coins. You could say Zcash as well, Bitcoin Cash. Litecoin is a big example because they're getting a lot of usage for money purposes and not a lot of love from the market cap. And even Monero before the Binance delisting was doing okay, but not fantastic. And despite having ever increasing usage. And so there's just a lot of, thoughts of like, why even work as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system if you go broke doing that? So I started to see some of your stuff analyzing that. Would you mind kind of just, I don't know, where did you start doing that, or what prompted you, and just kind of the background of you doing these analytics, I guess?
Well, I always wanted to make little videos explaining things because I feel like I end up explaining the same core concepts to people over and over again. And I and a lot of times people ask me too, where can I see this, or, what's a good place to find this kind of information? And I don't really have anywhere to point them most of the time for specific things. So I actually, at first I was going to do like little videos that kind of demonstrate economic concepts. And I still might, but I think it requires a little bit more animation. But I'm always playing around with numbers and spreadsheets and looking at and trying to find interesting ways to compare things. And I just decided to turn some of those into videos, especially in relation to Dash and other payment coins, because it seems so odd to me how no one in the crypto space seems to actually care about using it as money. And I think that obviously it's easier to just say, oh, it's a store of value, or, oh, the price is going up and will keep going up because it's always been going up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lazier thing to do than to actually promote real usage on the network. The thing about it, though, is it's kind of like selling a stock by telling people that the stock price is going up. But if underneath that there isn't a business, or there isn't a product or a service that does anything for anyone, all that really backs it is speculation. And I feel like that's where the crypto space is at largely. There's a few things that work on top of it, especially in Ethereum, but they're pretty minor compared to the market cap, and the most of the money moving around is moving between exchanges, or from one speculative use to another speculative use. And there's very little in the way of actual economic activity of any form on any of these networks. And I think maybe people have really underplayed the potential value of that. I think there's a lot of real value that can be had in the currency use case. And it's a stable value. Once you get people using it, once you have a base of users, that puts a floor on where your price can go. I think most of the cryptocurrencies right now don't really have a floor because there isn't really any real usage. And even in the case of the ones that are being used, if you took speculation out of it, I don't think there's anything left. I think real world commerce, they're just, you can argue, hey, is Litecoin ahead of Dash by 10 times, 50 times? I mean, maybe they are, but
that's still pennies.
50 times pennies isn't a lot of, if you compare all of the crypto spending as currency combined and put it next to, Apple Pay and PayPal and Visa and MasterCard, it doesn't show up on the chart. It's zero. It's just,
it's statistical zero, probably.
It's completely irrelevant. So I think the idea of coins competing against each other makes absolutely no sense. I think we have yet to reach the moment where we see any coin really come ahead in adoption. So I think the network effect of any of the coins at this point, as far as usage goes, is so small it's not even relevant. And I kind of wanted to demonstrate with some numbers in the best way I could figure out what the influence of that would be on the price of coins, or what it would be on the profitability in the case of Dash on masternodes. And it's pretty substantial.
So I have all those slides that you sent over put up. I'm going to hit on a couple of other things first. So as you might have seen, I tweeted out from the Dash account the Grayscale report thing. And I'm going to throw that up on the screen. That's about that. Basically, Grayscale put out some report at the end, from average from March to September 2023 of active users versus market capitalization. They have this curve going up, and somewhere around the middle of the curve, as far as market cap versus users, you have Dash. And Dash is at the very bottom of that chart that goes up, where the market cap is very bottom, despite the usage of the actual average users or daily users was relatively high. And so Dash is, for example, competing in the same ballpark as, for example, Algo and Bitcoin Cash and Doge and XRP. XRP is at the very top of that same line, meaning the same number of active users of XRP, according to Grayscale's research. Again, it's always harder to tell 100%. But roughly, Dash is at the same usage as something like XRP for daily usage, and Doge, yet at a very tiny fraction of the market cap. In fact, let me see, what is Ripple right now as far as the market cap? Ripple is what, 29 billion? So roughly not 10x, 100x almost. So Dash is valued at 1% of what a much less centralized, much less decentralized, but also similarly used, maybe, according to Grayscale's research.
Maybe.
According to them,
yeah,
that's what it is. And so there's clearly tons of speculation versus usage. And then the other metric I like to throw up is, of course, the cryptofees.info chart, which if these were companies and not networks, this would be revenue. And Ethereum is the king by a massive amount, right? The one-day fees are 16 million is what in the one-day fees the Ethereum network generates. Uniswap, which is part of Ethereum, right, is number 2 at 2.1 million basically a day. And Bitcoin is 1.45. And so that's how much these things generate. And obviously these are big players. You got a BNB Smart Chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, like all the L2 stuff. And as you start to scroll down, finally you get to Dogecoin way down the list, but it's still relatively high. It's like middle of the pack maybe at 8,500 or so. Now, these days, as opposed to like just 4 months ago or whatever, Doge is putting some real numbers on the board. There are millions of transactions a day on the Dogecoin network, all with very low fees, but like you add them up, and now Dogecoin is probably the best example of, just in pure fee revenue, what you could expect from having a highly adopted, by crypto standards, I guess, payment type chain. And I think they were mostly doing like inscriptions and, trash like I'm not saying, I'm not judging people who want to use it, but it's not. And then you go down to like Ripple is only making like $1.5 grand. Monero's half that. Litecoin is also like $800 or so. And you get to Bitcoin Cashes generate like $100 a day in fees, which is, wow, that's very low. And then Decred is 50 something. And I'm sure Dash is somewhere in the Decred to Bitcoin Cash kind of range. So that's kind of the scoreboard, more or less, for pure revenue as far as like fee revenue. Before we move on to your stuff, what are your initial thoughts on that?
Those numbers are pretty interesting. My main takeaway is just that they're all really small. I mean, they're all trivially small compared to the relative, public knowledge and investment in some of those networks. They're just, obviously you need to ramp up actual usage by many orders of magnitude before these become self-sustainable systems. And, that was always going to be the case. That's why there's a built-in block reward on Bitcoin, so that you have time to make the system sustainable. Now, if we want that to happen, though, we actually have to put users on it at some point. Because if you just eat the block reward and decide everything's going to be okay as long as more people keep dumping in money, but nobody ever uses it, you're eventually going to run into a situation where it just doesn't work anymore, where it's not economically viable to maintain the system. And, I don't know when that happens, but it has to happen eventually. You can't run an economically unsustainable system forever, because there isn't an infinite amount of money that's going to pour into that system forever.
Yeah, so there's a kind of a couple economic things at play here. Clearly, the reason why the price goes up is because people buy it, and they buy it because having this asset provides them with utility. And sometimes utility is, I hope it goes up, which is, that's not a lasting utility, but it is a utility of sorts, and when the pure cryptofees.info perspective is kind of like, it's sort of the opposite of that in a certain extent. It's two sides of the same coin, no pun intended, right? But it's, if you are generating millions and billions in revenue a day, for example, if you're generating a ton of revenue like that, then if you stake or you mine this coin, you get that money. And so from a proof of stake type perspective, or something with a proof of service model like Dash with masternodes, then that does drive the price up. If you're saying, wow, I can make all this money in addition to just the block reward inflation, like this is all fee revenue, it's worth buying for that purpose. And on another level, if I buy $100 worth of Dash and I use it to transact or whatever, and if I pay $102 for that $100 worth of Dash. If the utility of using it as a payment system, if it's nice and smooth and just works, and I can send it to my friends all over, it's so great. I'm willing to take that hit, I guess. I'm willing to pump the price by overpaying slightly. And if enough people do that, right, then that rises the price. If there is utility beyond just the pure, that kind of pure parity. So those are kind of the price adjustment mechanisms those are some of them, right, of mass usage contributing to a higher valuation. I don't know what other things you want to add into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think how much the fee is or how much individual people pay really matters until we up the user base by 10 million, 100 million. We really, this only works at scale. And I think we should think about the cryptocurrency projects as though they're startups.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are buying these coins are venture capitalists putting money into the system. The miners, stakers, whatever else the network might be paying out, those are vendors. Those are resource. That's like the startup is paying its power bill, it's paying its hosting service, it's paying whatever else it uses as a startup. And people see the valuation go up every time there's another fundraise, except here it's every few seconds on an exchange instead of once in a while. But the effect is the same. It's people are continue to buy into the thing that has potential, and then more people buy in, and it looks like it has more potential because more people bought in. So the number keeps going up and up and up. And this isn't a bad model. We have a lot of companies that used this. I mean, Amazon lost money for a long, long time, and people kept dumping money into it. A lot of other companies have been like that. But these companies created viable products that would eventually turn enough profit to make the system sustainable and start paying out a benefit to the shareholders.
Yeah, and I guess the nuance what you're saying there is they weren't profitable, but they did have lots of revenue. Like
they were building something, that would generate future revenue.
Not just building something like Amazon building a site and advertising and stuff, but like Amazon turning over product.
Yes, they were engaging in real world economic activity, and I don't know if people just don't care about that and think everything will be fine without it, or if they don't really believe that cryptocurrencies can be leveraged for real economic value. From where I'm sitting, it seems very obvious both that they can be and that there's an enormous potential in that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. It's kind of an interesting point of view where Bitcoin, as the trailblazer, obviously was just worth just nothing, just such nothing, like nothing at all. And then people speculate on it, got a little bit of value here and there, and then people are like, let me do 5,000 a pop for these pizzas, and whoever accepted those pizzas did so speculatively, mostly, where they're like, yeah, I guess, like, but it's probably going to do some extra value, but like they still, okay, and then you prove the use case. Then you had like Satoshi Dice, where people were like, oh, this is useful. I want to play these little online dice games. And then that was actual utility with a bunch of transactions, still values like, and we have to say that despite all this, Bitcoin, I'm sure, had a ton of positive speculation from cypherpunks and freedom lovers and stuff who were just like, there's nothing like this. This is, everything. And then you hit the Silk Road, where now the rubber hits the road. And I've never been a customer of the Silk Road, as I've already pointed out, not because it should need to be said, but everything I choose to buy these days is fully legal. And I don't need to do something like that. But the point is, there's a giant market for not being stuff that you can't buy in legacy systems, and the money you use for that you cannot use digital. You cannot roll up a $100 bill and stuff it in your USB port. It doesn't work that way. There's no digital cash. But with digital cash, which is what Bitcoin was, there was an actual product market fit, an actual utility to that. And kind of after that, in my opinion, almost everything else that happened to Bitcoin has been speculating. Like, it proved the use case that this could be huge. And then a speculative money followed that very proven utility. When the utility kind of shifted, I would say half of Bitcoin's utility got taken away. The other half of, it still works for the things it worked before, but only at like large industrial scales, only at institutional scale, not at the individual scale. So half the utility got destroyed. The other half is still there, and just enough speculation keeps piling on top of it that it kind of has coasted into like it's now part of the economic system, kind of, and a growing part of the economic system. But it's just like, I think its value is kind of capped there. And then of course you have all these other coins which had like if you look at the value, and I did actually look at this in the past, by the way, when you charted Dash's market cap or versus its transaction volume compared to Bitcoin, Dash was severely overvalued for many, many years. And I don't think it's very specific to Dash. I think all altcoins, right, had the same effect where Bitcoin had to prove real utility to a certain extent before people threw money at it. Altcoins already took Bitcoin's proven utility and they just threw money at it. And so, yeah, now we're at the point where it's just like, all right, no more money being thrown at you.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And I actually had an argument with some dude on Telegram today who was like, he obviously making assumptions, right? But seems like an investor who did not do well and is upset and is saying, oh, we need to like stop chasing this digital cash thing, it's not working, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, basically I don't know what else there is at this point, right? Especially not for like, this is a cryptocurrency that people that only ever tried to facilitate payments. In the beginning it was adding privacy to these payments, and then it was just adding a lot of other cool things to these payments to make them work better. And it's just never been anything but that. The Masternode boom came and went. The Evo Masternode boom came and really went, right? And payment volume has steadily increased to a certain extent, kind of. We don't have the growth we'd like to see. I'm really working on it for this year and the next year. But that's kind of where we're at. And I don't think there's any way out of this other than turning over users, right? So... yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dash has some other things going for it that could potentially be a big deal. Like the way that platform stores and updates data compared to Ethereum and all the Ethereum-like chains, I think is something that has just insane potential. And I don't understand why every other network insists on putting every little bit of smart contract data, no matter how trivial or stupid, into the blockchain permanently and then paying for that forever. It just seems completely absurd to me, and everybody's trying to work out how to do that sustainably forever, rather than just, the Dash platform state changes they're genius. It's a beautiful system. I can't wait to see how that plays out. I kind of look at that as the gravy on top, though. We have a really functional payment system right now, and I think that alone has far more potential than Bitcoin can possibly reach, or than probably most of the other cryptos. Not that that's saying much. I think most of the cryptos higher valued than Dash are quite literally useless as far as any kind of real economic use.
Yeah. Lower use.
Some of them blatantly so.
So Dogecoin is an interesting example because I think Dogecoin is a fantastic corollary for all of crypto, in that it's kind of a joke and a meme, and that's why people throw money at it for the most part. It also at its core kind of does something very useful, but not in a unique way compared to the rest of the cryptos. Like everything can kind of do what Dogecoin does. And so Doge is like, it is the space. As long as Doge is in the top coins, that's a very great marker for the rest of the space. The rest of the space is based on some weird mix of speculation and like the base utility of cryptocurrency, like the Satoshi invented stuff, but not much extra. That's kind of a lot of the space, really.
I mean, as absurd as it is, I frankly think Dogecoin belongs in the top 10. I'm hard pressed to think of 10 coins that I think are better, more useful to me.
More used, for sure.
more used. I mean, people
Yeah.
do use Dogecoin. It's probably one of the most used as an actual currency coins. Um, the reasons
Yeah.
I don't place it ahead of Dash, in my own personal preferences, because I think Dash has some technical things going for it that are just way more important in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But Dogecoin works. It works as a currency. It does what Bitcoin originally intended to do. Um, I'd be more gung ho on it if I had some confidence that it was, going to be continue to be developed and supported indefinitely. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it gets a hype boost, and suddenly a bunch of people want to develop for it and keep it going and make sure the nodes still connect, and then, it dies down, and then you can't sync up your wallet anymore, and is it going to do that again? Can it reach a level where it maintains interest? Will it ever get advanced features? I don't know.
The
As
answer is
it
probably no.
stands, as it stands, it's pretty nice. It's fairly usable. It's cheap to use. It does what it's supposed to do. And given its relative user base, I think it deserves the relative position it has.
Mm-hmm.
Should that position be worth $12 billion in market cap? Probably not. Um, but I think that's a
Yeah.
bigger issue of the overall
Well,
crypto space.
before we hit on some of these slides, we did have a one-time, um, one-time super chat. He just said, "I hope the age of crypto adoption is approaching. The market dominated by speculators eventually needs to see the need for usable crypto money. When many people own or have exposure to crypto, they should naturally become interested in how to spend it." Yeah, I can't disagree with him there. And there's an interesting point he kind of threw in there, which is it seems like there's the cart before the horse a little bit. But now that the cart's before the horse, you start to pay attention to the horse. And so because so many people own crypto, like the entire one of my favorite companies in the space, of course, and I think you'd agree, is Spritz Finance, because they let you in, especially in the US, live in 100% off of crypto with just one service. Of course, you have to KYC, but it's non-custodial, and that's great.
Hmm.
And they're in the process of integrating instant send for Dash, as they say. We're going to do a big announcement at some point next week, and teaser, but whatever. They've supported Dash for a while, but they launched exclusively on Polygon, and then they did a few other EVM stuff and Avalanche and stuff, and then finally, thanks to I started talking to him, but Kanuker, our good friend, sealed the deal, got them to integrate Dash, and then when they went for Dash, they just added Bitcoin 2, because why not Bitcoin 2, right? But the point is, they went the EVM route first because their entire thing was a lot of people are doing DeFi stuff. They have DeFi gains. They want to spend their DeFi gains. And it's a pain to off ramp to your bank. So let's just make a service that makes it a breeze, just, easy. And so that is kind of what Onetime's talking about a little bit there, is the whole people are having crypto. They're going to want to figure out how to spend it. And I guess the Dash market positioning is to make sure that Dash is just hovering outside every single area where people are making money in crypto, and just like catch them on the way out and plug them into, like, you be the payment rails on the way out.
Hmm.
And that's kind of our kind of thing. So do you want to talk about these slides? I don't know how well in your mind do you have them, but
We'll find out, I guess.
yeah.
No, I mean, they're pretty much just picked out of my
Yeah. The
videos
first
there,
one,
but I
Dash
think
profitability at scale. I'm showing the 2x per year thing. Yeah, so chat about this one a little bit.
yeah. So a while ago, I did some calculations as to, what I wanted to find out if the Dash network would be sustainable from an economic perspective at Visa level scale. So, I looked up numbers for, what are the costs of running the network? What are the block rewards going to be? That's assume a price point of a fee of, a penny a transaction, and see, will this be viable? Will people still be able to afford to run nodes? What will the income look like? Um, and then I went to update that since the adjustments with how the masternode rewards break out, and some time had passed, and other things had changed. Um, So which slide actually are you looking at? Am I
This is
supposed
just
to be able to see it?
the bar. If you look at like the YouTube or X or whatever,
Oh,
it's the one that's it's just the bar graph with the green bar graph by year and profitability. I guess I don't know what this figure is. Like the lowest number here, which is like a 2043 is almost gonna hit, is 500,000. What is the 500,000? What is that, USD or what is that?
um, that's a good question. I thought I'd be able to see the chart while we were doing this.
Yeah.
So I actually don't. I'm not 100% sure which chart you're looking at, and for some
Yeah.
reason my computer doesn't want to open these files on this
Yeah.
computer.
So it's in Discord. Also, if you just open the YouTube video, it should be up on the screen by now.
I'll open the YouTube video.
Yeah, the most recent part right there. So dash profitability at scale, 2x per year. Profitability of masternodes at scale given current price. And the figures are from 500,000 up to 4.5 million. And
Okay.
here's, yeah, this one, it starts at 2024 and it's like, I can't even see the data. It's so small until 2037.
Yeah,
You
so
start to see it.
what I did here is I just assumed a doubling of transaction volume every year up to 2045, which is the point at which you basically match Visa level. I didn't think there was too much point in going past that. So this is basically extrapolating for that and assuming a 1 penny per transaction fee. This is how profitable masternodes would be at the current price. And the current price at the time was like, I don't know, $28 or something. I
Yeah.
think the next slide is a spreadsheet that kind of shows this.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Let's switch back to the regular stream. But
So annual. Anyway, yeah, that's 3.5 million a year. Of course, that's in
Okay.
today's money, and that's assuming today's dash price, which I don't think would stay the same at all
Of course.
if
But
it's scaled.
so that's basically, and by profit you mean revenue minus expenses, right? For
Yes, revenue
masternode.
minus expenses. So not only would it be economically sustainable to run masternodes at scale, it'd be extremely profitable even if the price of Dash
Yes.
doesn't actually go up.
We're talking about just doubling transactions. So we're talking
And
about 2024, let's just say 15,000 a day or something, and then 30,000, and then 60,000, and which is pretty freaking slow growth. Which
yeah, it's not
historically is accurate,
quite
maybe, but like,
exactly that. But yeah, for a while the costs stay mostly flat until you get to a certain point. Then server costs start to go up dramatically.
it's so I'm gonna do the spreadsheet one now. So just
Okay.
the transactions, fee income, fee per node, yeah, et cetera, profit. And so 2024, and I guess
Yeah.
this is an annual thing, right? Is as far as
The chart's annual.
yeah.
This is monthly here on the spreadsheet.
Okay. So it's 422,000 transactions per month,
Yeah.
which is low, but whatever. That's where we're
Yeah.
at. The fee income is 4.2 grand about per month for everything. Per node, it's like 84 cents, right? And I'm sure there's got to be. Did you account for miners in this as well or not?
Well, this is just the masternode part of the
Okay.
equation. So
Okay.
this doesn't account for how much the network's paying miners. I did do a separate sheet on that at somewhere, but
Yeah. Well, just as long as this
yeah,
is like accurate. So per node,
yeah,
a node makes 84 cents right now, basically. And then per,
yeah,
per node login,
yeah,
then server costs $10 a month, so blah blah blah, income, and then there you go. So so the per block node income, that's like that's the inflation, right? The issuance, right?
yeah. The block income. That's yeah.
Yeah, and so that's going down clearly.
It's going down because we have our our
7%.
drop, our 7% drop every year, and then the income actually briefly goes down there. You can see in the chart at a certain point
Yeah, it starts going back
before it
up in
starts to rocket up.
2029.
Now, of course, you have to remember that these are some there's a bunch of assumptions in here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming the price doesn't move, and frankly, I think the price is really low. So the chances that we doubled the transaction volume for 6 years in a row and that doesn't move the price up at all is pretty unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and also, an actual 100% increase in transaction volume, even if say we do get to Visa level by 2046, it's probably not going to be an even doubling every year. It's probably going to be, something goes viral one year and all of a sudden you have 10 million new people onboarded.
Yeah.
Um, but it really, that I think is less important than just demonstrating what the relative, profitability, sustainability of the network is at every given level along the way, because we don't know
Mm-hmm.
which of these levels we might sit at for a while.
Yeah. And so like 20, 30 feet per node. Yeah. So yeah, the flippening, as I mentioned with this, it tends to be like if you hit 2032 all of a sudden
Hmm.
from 2031 2032 is, again, this is the slow chart as you mentioned, of course. So yeah, that does start to happen. This is again pure fee revenue without any effect on the price from all that buying.
Yeah, you're still getting the block reward, but the block reward is assumed to be still, $27 or whatever it was at the time I did the math.
Yeah, and that's an important thing with Dash is that the block reward lasts a hell of a lot longer than a lot of other coins, which
Hmm.
in retrospect, maybe I can't tell if that's too long. Like you're just living
Well,
off of VC money forever kind of thing.
it
Or,
made Dash look less appealing in the short term because now the inflation rate's going down faster on some other coins. However, the whole point of that inflation rate was to keep the coins, uh, to keep interest in supporting the network while it's not doing anything. If you're burning all of that and you haven't invested in actual users, I think that's a problem. So Dash probably has more time to figure this out than some of these other networks do.
yeah, has time before like the flippening. And then you hit the Maya protocol approach where you have no time. You just start out with no money. And then,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, which is,
Um,
I think that's like, in some cases, some ways, the best way of doing things, but it's also very risky. It's very binary for your success.
mhm.
You're gonna crash or you're gonna win, like one of the two. Looks like Maya's doing great. So this next slide here was, let me just see, it's called a 3 to 8% sheet. Let me just throw that up here. Anyway, it's profit, percentage of investment, annual. It's like I guess the annual ROI, adjusted block income, profit, earnings, ROI. So yeah.
Yeah. So I extended the sheet here to show, because, and this part is specific to Dash because I established an upper limit on. Um, Let me look at this quick and make sure I'm saying the right thing. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was an upper limit on um, the number of master nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that at about 6,000. Now that's arbitrary. Obviously, the number of master nodes is hard limited to the number of coins since there needs to be 1,000 coins per master node.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look down this chart at the bottom, obviously you can't have that many master nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically adjusted all the numbers, to divide it amongst 6,000 once it got past 6,000, or to adjust by, the relevant percentage to show the necessary value that a master node would have to increase by in order for the network to have that much economic activity by it. This is assuming that people don't speculate at all beyond that, that
Mm-hmm.
enough money comes into Dash just to be what is necessary uh, to keep the network supplying those transactions, which, I think it's a fairly safe assumption that the amount of money pouring in would be vastly greater than this, because as you can see, the return on investment goes insane at the same time. Um, so in this way, even if there isn't pure price speculation, people buying in just to get the masternode rewards would necessarily push the price up because of that hard limit, and it
Yeah.
would push it up by quite a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
let's hit on this next slide then, which is Dash profit at 8%. It has the green and the black chart here.
yes, and I think I'm trying to see if it's in that spreadsheet. It's very small on the screen.
Yeah.
So this one is basically locking the. So because of this, as more people invest or as more people transact, the people who invested are earning a higher percentage on the Dash in their masternodes, especially considering that the price isn't moving because we're assuming no price action. So even without any price action, that percentage goes up. Now, if we make the assumption that anytime the return, the annual payout for a masternode exceeds 8%, that people are going to keep buying in until it, until it goes back to 8%, which is an arbitrary number.
Of
You could
course.
redo this with 10 or 20 or whatever you think is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But I think 8% is a pretty competitive return. So if people continue to buy into Dash to maintain the 8%, this is um, this is the now. I really wish I had labeled these charts to make sure I say everything right, but I kind of just slid them into the video as I was talking when I made this.
Yeah.
But I believe this is a necessary price per coin
Mm-hmm.
in order to maintain
Just
what
that.
was on the previous spreadsheet.
Yeah. So wow, that starts to get pretty high pretty quick.
Yeah, and the reason I show this only in those last years
It's because it
is
doesn't
also
matter
kind
that
of
much.
arbitrary. Well, it doubles every year, and if you show a chart with 20 years of doubling, you just can't see the first half of the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just you can't see the difference between the black bar and the green bar, and that's really what I'm trying to show here. The
Mm-hmm.
black bar is the necessary increase due to economic activity, not accounting for an adjustment to 8%. The green bar accounts for the 8%. So as you take into account these different factors, you start to get a better and better number. And note, I'm still not accounting for any price appreciation. Partially that's because I want to show that there are huge economic gains to be had without any price speculation. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I don't really want to speculate on price speculation because,
Who the
it'd
hell
just be
knows?
completely arbitrary numbers that I would make up.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these are not arbitrary numbers. These numbers are pretty much hard coded into the economic model that Dash runs on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, and
Uh,
I want my figures to be as anchored to reality as possible.
yeah, is relatively objective, and that is kind
Yeah.
of interesting because a lot. This is one of those, and don't have time for a long rant on that, but it's one of those user experience deficiencies, I guess, in crypto is the actual crypto tokens are used as a speculative investment kind of a thing. It's so most people, and it's so annoying that even in the Maya protocol, which uses cacao as a gas token and uses it to pay people out in, but they have an investment token called Maya that if you buy Maya, you get 10% of all the fees that go in, or you can LP and whatever. That's the way to speculate on its success. But people still just want to buy and hold cacao. Like, why? Like it's so frustrating, and they have a very well set up system. I would call Dash. I wouldn't know if I'd call it not a well set up system, but for the current realities of crypto speculation, it sucks when you try to get someone to use Dash and then the price goes down by like 13% because of some like whale dumped, and now that they can't buy their groceries the same way, it affects the actual end user product to a certain extent. And so the thing with this whole speculation thing, the whole price thing, the problem is the average Dash holder is not going to see these raw data, what you're pulling right now at least. They're not going to see the positive effects of that because that's all going to be to Dash a proper investor. So you're supposed to invest, which is by getting into like masternodes and actually running the infra behind this kind of stuff. So that's kind of interesting. So the actual price does have to be affected at some point, but the point is, as there is attraction to capturing these economic gains by participating in infra, they need to pump the price to get into that, and then that will affect the average user. So I guess that's that little rant
Yeah.
there.
And I don't think we can educate our way into getting more users. I don't think that works as a strategy. If you've seen, Silicon Valley, I think that's about how it goes. Um, what I do think is possible though is to uh, maybe make this maybe some small number of people in a position to do something or to build something on top of this might see it and realize the potential of some of this, some of how this is set up. What I could see is if say you're a VC looking for something to invest in, you look at crypto and what do you have? There's not a good way for venture capital to really interact directly with blockchains. Venture capitalists aren't looking to buy a pile of coins and sit on it. They want to invest in a company that they get equity in. And I think that's why we've ended up with a bunch of companies that really want to push things like custodial services off chain, because they want to try to capture as much of what's going on those coins as possible. They don't want it to be a free decentralized thing that everybody else can, that the network as a whole benefits from. They want to have an outsized gain for putting in their money.
And as a brief interjection to support that point you just made, as a previous show I did today, one of them was talking about Coinbase Commerce going in exactly that direction, where right now they exclusively support payments by either their own customers or by users of EVM L2s, of which they have one, of course, and they'd rather use theirs. And then, of course, all of Lightning is very centralized or custodial at the worst, but at the best centralized. And Blockstream is really pushing its liquid sidechain, which is, again, a federated, tightly controlled company. Almost the entirety of the crypto space, as far as market cap is concerned, I would say 80% or more. I haven't done the math, but 80% or more is invested in L2, what I would call captured kind of scaling. And that's kind of like, that's why that's winning out, because there's so much money to be made by capturing that, by camping out on it. Now, there is a lot of money to be made if, like, I think the Dash way, and I'm not just saying the Dash way, it's also the Solana way, also the Bitcoin Cash way, also the, that kind of way could be immensely profitable too if you run the base infrastructure. But the problem is it's harder to capture that for just you. You'd have to share it with anyone who wants to run a node, which sounds great for us, but
it isn't anymore though. And I think the advantage Dash has is actually that it's really undervalued. At this point, if somebody in venture capital wanted to come in, they could basically just buy a bunch of Dash to run masternodes for themselves. And that would be essentially the same as buying a huge chunk of equity in the Dash network. And then they could fund a team to build whatever they want to on top of Dash. And, would that be, it'd be a slightly different set of pros and cons versus equity in a regular company. But there's some distinct advantages there, and I think that's you can't do that to like Dogecoin, not only because it doesn't have masternodes, but it's already at a $12 billion market cap. It's too much money, and there's no direct way to have a share. And it's not only a share; it's a voting share. You get to have an influence on the network. You get to directly benefit from activity that you create on the network.
Blockstream doesn't rug you.
You got a company, maybe it's invested in some other startups that build things on blockchains. Well, what's more efficient, to build things on a blockchain that doesn't store all your data, that has super fast, cheap transactions, or to build one on, Ethereum or an Ethereum clone that's going to be insanely expensive at scale? So I think there's some synergy opportunities there. If the right person in the right place realizes how far their capital could go inside of Dash, I think there's some opportunities there. There's also just just realizing how much scale could be achieved with Dash, I think over time we could just attract any use case that's actually serious, because the other payment networks, for the most part, are not long-term sustainable. They don't have economic models that really make sense. I'm not going to say that Bitcoin Cash or Dogecoin can't work, or that Litecoin can't work long term. They could. I think they can.
Just not as elegantly designed.
I think there's a lot of problems they're going to have because of lack of governance and because of the way their economic model works and doesn't directly support the node infrastructure. Initially, Satoshi's initial model was very much all about the mining, but I think the fork that happened to Bitcoin really shows how disconnected mining can be from the wants and needs of the investors and the users on the network. I think what happened to Bitcoin very clearly doesn't advantage anyone who actually wants to use Bitcoin for anything. But the users didn't have any say. And Bitcoin Cash split, but they didn't really fix the problem because the users on Bitcoin Cash still don't have any say.
Yeah, that's kind of a elephant in the room a little bit.
You know,
But do you want to hit on the final 3 slides or not? There's the cost of mining at scale. And all that
yeah.
stuff.
So those three are from a
let's
video
run
I
through
did
these.
on the cost. This is looking at the mining cost, so the other half of the equation, as far as Bitcoin goes, and then I add some other coins in there at the end. So yeah, this is just the cost of Bitcoin mining, and the reason it goes down in a few places is because that's where the halving is on Bitcoin. So pretty straightforward stuff there. Bitcoin gets expensive as you exponentially scale it in order to pay that mining. That's money that's largely going out of the network. Almost mining is relatively low margin. Basically, all the
Yeah.
money that you're sending to miners goes to pay to buy miners and to buy electricity. In a lot of cases, they might even be losing money, depending on who they are and what their situation is. So this is money that largely is not staying in the Bitcoin network. It's immediately leaving Bitcoin. So I think it's very important to look at that cost, and you have to consider whether or not that's a cost that's economically viable for you to pay long term.
Yeah.
So
Then we have the cost of mining per Bitcoin transaction, and it's the same. It looks like the same chart, right? But it's the
yeah,
same.
I
It's the
mean,
same
you're
idea.
looking $45 to $60 billion, and it's an absurd price point. So the cost so Bitcoin is the only coin I could do this per transaction comparison on, because its transactions on chain are essentially limited. And you get up in the, what is it, 200 to $260 per transaction just to
Yeah.
support mining. Now that's the bare minimum to keep the network running,
Yeah, that's
as
brutal.
the blocks half. So, you know, it, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that.
Of
It's,
course.
hopefully that's kind of self-explanatory as far as
Yeah.
all that money has to come from somewhere. For Bitcoin to maintain its price while adding transactions, yeah.
And
So
so
anyway,
now we
here,
hit the
yeah.
cost of commercial banking versus Dash and Dogecoin and Bitcoin. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, so there's a few things here. You might notice that Dash becomes briefly more expensive than Bitcoin at the very end, and that's mainly an artifact of how I chose to scale the numbers, by just doing a flat doubling every year. That combined with where the halvings have to be, um, it's kind of arbitrary, and they're both expensive. Um, but Dash is cheaper for a long, long time, and I think that if we got to the 2031 to 2032 era, where we're between half the size of Visa and the size of Visa, that Dash might need to slightly adjust its economic model. Um, if we want to be more, more cost competitive than say Bitcoin at that model.
Yeah,
But
although Bitcoin's
of
chosen not to
another
reach
coin.
that level.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin can't reach that level, but let's say Bitcoin Cash or something, say they manage to survive and keep the network running despite these pretty insane costs up until that point. They might actually become cheaper than Dash at that point, assuming that it's reachable for any of the networks.
Hmm.
But if you compare this to, I think that's the market cap of the current U.S. banking sector, which is also kind of arbitrary. It does things crypto doesn't do, sure.
Yeah, of course.
But it's showing you the relative cost, and both Dash and Bitcoin are greatly below that, and
Hmm.
any other coin that worked on a similar model would be. This is actually where you see Dogecoin kind of lose it because of the inflation in Dogecoin,
Yeah.
which I commonly tell people is really not a big deal,
Hmm.
because it's a vanishingly small percentage of the Dogecoin
Yeah.
that becomes created. So this really, you know, at some point it seems like it becomes a problem here in dollars, but we have to remember that dollars are not a stable value.
Of course. Well,
Um,
stable
and
coin.
if Dogecoin is doing a considerable percentage of the world's transactions, um, things get a little bit weird at the end there. So I mean, the last couple of years of this slide are really crazy town. Um,
Hmm.
I don't even know if I should have included them, except that that's the set of data I used
Yeah.
for the beginning.
Well, this whole
The bottom
thing.
line,
Yeah. Finish and hit me with your
yeah,
bottom
that
line.
the bottom line here is that the crypto networks can be vastly cheaper than commercial banking.
Hmm.
And Dash is actually set up pretty well for all but the most extreme case there. And that's something that could probably be addressed pretty easily at that time.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure there's different optimizations that haven't been even been thought about. I'm sure that there's a way that you could, you could process just like transaction batching type stuff. There's
I mean, you don't
payment.
even need to, because this is mining fee
Yeah.
stuff. So you could honestly just delete the block reward at a certain point,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
you'd have so much money from actual transactions that you wouldn't need it.
Yeah, that would be, that'd be interesting. So as we kind of get to wrap this up, let me hit on Onetime says another thing here. He said, when masternode counts keep going down, all those collateralized coins get sold into the circulating supply, which hurts the price. In the future, eventually the master rewards alone won't sustain enough masternodes, right? Is the masternode blockchain design flawed for this reason? I think that
No.
that's purely speaking on the issuance, the inflation that goes down. And as when the chart, when we're pointing out like the profitability goes down and then starts going up, is when you start to have enough profitability in that to where now you have an actual reason to do a lot of this at scale. And also, this whole chart, this entire discussion has been based on payments, right? On just like payments use case.
Hmm.
But I know that there's some people in the core team, and of course, obviously, I'm also looking into it as I try to understand the platform and what it can do better once evolution's out. But we're looking to talk to a few big like vendors that would use it for data and stuff like that, like a big company that would use. So you onboard one company like that, you have this giant chunk or this big chunk of extra on Evo chain activity, right? And which does correlate to on-chain transactions and fees and stuff like that. So the whole platform part of things is, I guess, a much easier nut to crack. It sounds like as far as putting numbers on the board there. And at that point, masternode profitability could not have that dip, right? Or even node, I would say profitability, since it's technically a different node. But yeah, that just sort of addresses that.
Yeah, I mean, the more people sell nodes, the more profitable the remaining nodes are. I think it balances out. Um, if people feel like there's more gains to be had somewhere else, uh, they're probably going to consider that. And I don't think Dash has a lot of public mind shares like the most stable, secure thing to invest in. I think if you can build user base and become a more stable, well-known thing to invest in, then that's gonna, it's gonna maybe get you more users than just the percentage would. But I also think there's a lot of potential to build tools on top of Dash that allow people um, to use, maybe make Dash a more of a part of the DeFi space. I floated an
Yeah.
idea a while back about throwing loaned money against Bitcoin on a Thor chain contract into you know a masternode, into like a crown node or something.
Hmm.
I think you could do some interesting things there that would allow people to have um,
Yeah.
benefit from the Dash gains. And
Yeah, and an
um,
interesting part of this whole thing is yield from Dash, and obviously, if masternodes slash Evo nodes are the only source of yield on your Dash, and they're not generating transaction revenue at some point, then
mhm,
yes, you would have that decrease. But part of the reason why I'm big into the Maya protocol is that recaptures a lot of that value from people making money on exchanges, exchanging Dash. They It actually puts that back in the average Dash holder's hands, to where the more exchange volume you take from, let's just say, Binance and put it onto Maya, the average Dash holder can throw money into that liquidity pot there and earn it, and then that is competing versus the masternode APYs. And then even though the masternode rewards go down over time, the that if it goes up on the other Maya side at the same time, it kind of would even out, for example. Or and then you add in transaction fees, and you add in like data providers and stuff using evolution and all that, and that starts to build on all that utility, and then it just starts going up from there. So that's just kind of a quick addressing of the one-time thing. As we sort of wrap this thing up, right? Then the it seems like the game plan then, which I'd love to do another podcast at some point, and who knows who would be with. I'm sure I could rope you on it, maybe do like a panel almost of the game plan moving forward. And obviously we have a much vaguer game plan, and some departments have much more specific game plans, but it seems like start getting a lot more massive user growth. And I'm working on that now. One thing I'm focused, because the fees aren't going to amount to much until you have a lot of growth. And so
mhm.
I think the first thing is put a lot of wins on the board for user growth. Even if they're not titanic, just show growth and excitement of use and all that kind of stuff. That does get, at some point, it gets VC type or investors, like long-term investors, seeing, oh, this doesn't just have potential. The potential can be realized and is being realized. I can still be early. And then after that, then you get retail speculators coming in, and that also pushes the price up, of course, from seeing, oh, look, a lot of people are paying with this stuff. But also, one reason why I'm really pursuing the affiliate approach kind of thing is you can get revenue relatively quickly from relatively small amounts of user growth, because that revenue doesn't have to come from Dash only. It's only the companies that use Dash, such as Bitrefill, such as Spritz, such as CoinEx, like a centralized exchange, such as the Maya protocol, such as all these other sources. And every time you get a Dash user, you get one of those users too. And every time you get one of those users, if they trace it to us through our efforts, then we get paid, and then we can reinvest that in user growth. And so we don't have to like just suck from the treasury for all of our user growth if we're providing value to external businesses and partners. And so that's just kind of like how that part of things works. And I guess another interesting conversation we should have in the future is what is the product that people will buy? Obviously, instant payments and all that stuff is great. Usernames helps. Improving privacy might help. But like, what's the set of products that would really make people want to do this kind of stuff? And yeah, that's interesting enough. Okay, we probably have to cap that off right now. Parting words. What do you say?
Keep it dashy.
Yes, actually, we should say actually stay dashy.
Stay dashy.
And don't stay Mark Money Mason. As a little dig to our fallen comrade who didn't stay dashy, unfortunately. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you are into the after party, come join that. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're not invited. Get into the after party. I'll be chatting with you guys soon. I'll see you guys in, I guess, a month. And yeah, absolutely let me know wherever you can who you'd like to have on next to talk about whatever. And don't say quantum with when Evo, because yes, that's always in the back of my head. So that's always there. All right, guys. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend. See you.